So again, I'm really happy to be with you today. Um, and I just want to start out by acknowledging that it's probably a no-brainer to say that there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're all holding a lot. I want to acknowledge that. And the other day, I got a note from someone I know peripherally, and she asked me if I had any advice about spiritual practice these days. And what I said to her was mindfulness, to be really established and grounded in this practice. I have found to be really powerful and helpful. And then I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. For me, it's a real practice of an undefended heart, of really the willingness to be open to each moment, whatever it is. And that willingness is sati, mindfulness, be with, be with. Um, and also coming up for me this week, as I was reflecting on this, was the teaching or the idea of that there in our lives there are 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. There are 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. That idea, that idea, the 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows is from the Tao Te Ching. So it's not Buddhist, but it echoes Buddhist teachings, especially when you think about the eight worldly winds, which is a teaching on equanimity, that there is pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and shame. You have it all. It's the human condition. And so, although it's what's going on can be immense, it can feel immense, and feel overwhelming. But we want to see how we can be present with each moment. And how do we keep from being overcome by anything, any emotion? I had a teacher, it was actually Arena. Many of you know Arena Weissman. She said to me many, many years ago that overwhelm is in the mind. And I have had to sit with that over the years because it can be easy to become overwhelmed by so many things. I mean, 40 years ago, I was overwhelmed with the idea of moving the laundry from the washer to the dryer. I mean, we can become, I'm not minimizing anything, but we can become overwhelmed by almost anything if we just glom onto that idea and get lost in it. So recognizing that so often that story is in the mind, and we invite ourselves to come back to know what's right here, what's going on. Anyway, I was just thinking about how I was overwhelmed by so much stuff by living in the future. And I saw an article this week. Philip Moffitt's a wonderful teacher, and he sent out an email. And it was, what was it? It was about fear and overcome or overwhelmed by fear. And he said, and I love this, the untrained mind is agitated by the human condition. The untrained mind is agitated by the human condition. And the human condition is simply 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows and the eight worldly winds. It's dukkha, it's the four noble truths. There is discomfort, there is dissatisfaction, and there's a way out of that. There's all of these things. So focusing on one thing over another is being out of balance. And he also said that the lens of fear or any emotion can distort what we see. It shuts down our vision and we get lost in that. That's where the overwhelm comes from. That's where the shutdown comes from. And it becomes the whole of our lives, which is not true. I was teaching years ago, many years ago, I used to teach in a few rehabs. I would just teach mindfulness once a week. And And these folks knew nothing about meditation, knew nothing. It was really just kind of, so it was like all breath and body, breath and body. But when you're in this place of addiction or craving, because craving is addiction. It doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It can be anything. When we're lost in there, that can seem to take up the whole space in our heads. And it's like the thought is like, for me, it was all about what if, 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 what if. And when we're not, we're just lost in that. And we miss out on the one that says, I'd like a burrito for lunch, because that's also there. But we ignore all those other things because we're so focused on the one thing. And that, yeah, because and when you stop and go, oh yeah, but we shut it out because we have this tunnel vision, as Philip says, it shuts down our vision and we get lost. Um, you know, it's just our thought from sunrise to sunset. We give, same thing with our emotions, we give import to what we think is important. And the emotions, and then we sometimes push away those we think may be frivolous or too happy or this or that or the other, But I hear this a lot. How can I be happy when others are suffering so much? But this has been going on for centuries. There's nothing new under the sun. And so how do we move through this world wisely? And with the capacity to open to everything. That's the important thing, and it's not so much figuring out the answers to those questions, because sometimes there's no answers to questions, but instead to greet the emotions that are actually right here. Because when we begin to start judging, then we say, this is okay and this is not okay. When in reality, we have to say, this is what's here. How do I sit with this? We let go of our preconceived ideas and just are right here. Just be sati. Be with this moment. And it can be hard because the mind does have a negativity bias. It's evolutionary. We had it, we were like looking around like what's going to happen, is something going to kill us, and so there is this need for us to protect ourselves, but sometimes it just takes over and we get the negativity bias runs amok. And so what we also have to remember is the teaching of impermanence and Nietzsche, that everything comes, everything goes. May not go fast enough. It may not come fast enough. It may not be to our liking, but just to rest in this, everything shifts, everything changes. And how can I be with what's right here? As I said, I was always stuck in that what if. What if this happens? What if I lose my job? And what if this? I mean, it's such a painful place to be, but it's nowhere near reality. And what the invitation is to come back to what's right here and investigate this moment. I went on a retreat. I may have told this story a couple of weeks ago. I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I went on a retreat very, very, very early in my practice. And I had just shifted. I was leaving one job and taking another one, and it was very tenuous. And the mind was like all the what if questions. What if it doesn't work? What if am I making a mistake? Should I go back? All the back and forth. And I went on this retreat. And of course, when you're on retreat, you're just meditating. And that story was on and on and on and on. And if you've done residential retreat, you have the opportunity often to have meetings with teachers, either in a group, small group, or one-on-one. And I met with this teacher one-on-one, and I told her what my problem was. I told her what I was trying to figure out. And she said, let go of that story and just come back to the moment. And I walked out of that meeting going, she has no idea what she's talking about. But the good news and I was so ready to leave that retreat, but I had carpooled with someone and I couldn't. So I was stuck there, but what I kept doing is like, come back, let go and come back, let go and come back, let go and come back. It seemed so entrenched, but all of a sudden there was some space. It was like some space when you go, oh, I'm hungry right now. Oh, that thought's not there. It's a different thought. And what happened is, in being willing to let go of what I thought was the thing, we made space for what was actually present. And what actually was present was this emotion that arose, was this deep fear that I wasn't going to be able to do the new job, that I was going to be inadequate. And sitting and trying to figure it out was never going to get me to that clarity, that insight. And the insight was, oh, so the practice is let go of this thing and come back. Come back to your feet, come back to your breath. Let go of what is here right now. Maybe there's some joy. Um, allow impermanence to do its thing. Right now it's like this. And I like different phrases to help me remember. And for me, 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows is one of those phrases. Oh yeah, there's 10,000 sorrows, but there's also 10,000 joys. There's pain, but there's also pleasure. There's loss, but there's also gain. Just as the flip side, woohoo, there's gain. Oh, there's also going to be loss. The famous story of Ajahn Chah and his teacup. Ajahn Chah was a monk in Thailand in the last century, and monastics in our tradition don't own anything. And the monks in the monastery were saying, we notice you're using that same teacup every day. You seem to have a little attachment to it. And he said, this teacup is already broken. I know it will be gone at some point. The 5 remembrances, the second noble truth, or the first noble truth. There's birth, there's death, there's loss. Everything will be gone at some point. Recognizing that, so 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows for me is this little shorthand way of going, oh yeah, come back to what's here. Let this moment be what it is. I remembered I went on a walk around a few years ago. I go for a walk just around my block, and around the corner, there's a gun store. And I get annoyed, because there's a gun store and that's my thing. And they park and take up all the parking on the street and move my garbage cans. And so that's another thing. They are my metta practice. But I was walking and I passed the gun store and I go, "La, la, 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 la." And I continue walking, and I stopped. I think it must have been in the fall, because there was this gorgeous sunset. And it was stunning, the oranges and the purples, one of those in the clouds. And somebody was walking this way, and I went, look. And he's like, oh, that's beautiful. And so then there was also a connection with another human being, which was really moving. And it's like, oh, 100 yards, whatever, joy, sorrow, anger, beauty, whatever, being present. So I didn't miss that by grumbling. It's really about being present all the time. 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows reminds us that everything will pass, and we let it. Yesterday, I was shopping, I was at the grocery, and I was walking out to my car. And I don't know what popped into my head, but all of a sudden I just felt this tremendous grief. And it's something that I feel regularly right now. And I just, close to tears. And I just stopped and I'm like, okay. And I felt it in my body. Right. Okay. This is here right now. Let me breathe. And then I continued and I got home and I did this and I saw my cats who give me great joy. But to be fully open to the moment. I read something yesterday that said when we do that, everything comes into sharper focus. We're able to experience the joys as well as the sorrows. There's a fullness, a wholeness to our experience. Be with, sati. Be with the joy, be with the sorrow. And if we only look at one side, we're lopsided. That's what equanimity is, the appropriate response to this moment. I think of Guan Yin. Guan Yin is the embodiment of compassion. She's the female, and you can see. I love history because it was I wrote it down. I still can't read it. Avalokiteshvara was the male embodiment of compassion and evolved through to Guan Yin, the female. So it's this duality, this male, female, different gender. The compassion encompasses everything. And remembering that, oh yeah, the heart is touched by what's happening, by joy and sorrow, by everything. I was, I think it might have been that first retreat I was on up at Spirit Rock, and they have this beautiful statue of Guan Yin, and she's just ready for whatever shows up. She's sitting there with her hand on her knee like this, the pose of royal ease, but ready to jump in at a moment's notice with the cry, when she hears the cries of the world. And I got that tattooed on my leg. Because I said, I don't have that in my life. I want that in my life. I want to be able to be present for it all. We learn to be tender with ourselves when we experience these moments. I was tender with myself yesterday in the parking lot. I didn't say, come on, you gotta go. I was like, no. There's a tenderness to our practice. That's a wisdom. That's the compassion that's offered by Guan Yin and Avalokiteshvara. Avi, I'll call him Avi from now on. But, Audre Lorde said we have to constantly study how to do this tenderness, probably because of the negativity bias or because of what we have been taught by our families, by society. You don't deserve this. You're not supposed to. You should be better than this. All the things. But no, this practice teaches us this is the wise way. This is the compassionate way. The Eightfold Path. Don't do harm. Cultivate compassion and kindness. The Metta Sutta the Buddha offered as an antidote to fear and also as a way to remind ourselves that we want all beings to be at ease, omitting none. All of us is included in none. So important. And Audre Lorde also said, which I love, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare, which is so true. Because we are in this world that says, produce more, better. Show me what you've done lately. And there's a woman, Tricia Hersey, who's written a book, Rest is Resistance. She has what's called the NAP ministry. It's important to rest. And how often do we feel guilty when we do that? Yeah. But it's important to break those cycles of shoulds and have tos and la la la. And it's like, what's wise right now? What's the appropriate response in this moment? How do I take care of myself, which allows me to take care of others? There's a woman I love, another author, Austin Channing Brown. And she said, self-care is how I do the work in the first place. And she says she takes a 2-hour nap every day. She needs to do that for her health and for her mental health. Not all of us can do that. She has that luxury because she works from home. She's a writer, but we have to learn how to take care of ourselves to deal with the 10,000 sorrows. And joy is part of that. self-care, you know? Taking care of ourselves can be letting the joy in. Went to a comedy club on Friday night. That was fun. A comedian I really love, and many of you have heard me confess that I love baseball, and I'll get to listen to a baseball game on the drive home. And even though they suck and they lose a lot, I still have fun. It's what brings me joy. So find that. It's really important, especially when things are like so chaotic. There's the practice of RAIN, which can be helpful if you know that. RAIN, the acronym. Recognize what's present. Allow it to be. Investigate or bring curiosity, just like you did in practice today. What is this? And nurture it. Let it be there. Don't judge it. We don't can't judge our experiences. We can't help what shows up. It's our conditioning. When the conditions are right, these things are going to show up. Greet them, hold them, don't let them run the show. That's the thing. We don't let them take over because we recognize them and make a place for them. Make space. Philip Moffat also said in that article, life is more integrated because we are no longer avoiding or denying what's here. So there's an integration of our experiences. And we don't get it overnight. It takes time, but we move in that direction. We set an intention to be present and let go of the shoulds. I don't shit all over myself much anymore. Very rarely. And sometimes you stop and you go, oh, I don't do that anymore. Or some situation arises and you realize you have a different response from the one you've always had. People go, how meditation doesn't do anything. It's not so you get good at meditation. It's so when you're walking through life, you respond wisely, you respond more appropriately. And sometimes that's when you notice that this practice is having an impact. When you don't yell at somebody, or when you allow yourself to cry, even if it's in the shower, whatever it is, when you make space for everything and there's a full integration, we stay where we are. So, and watch when we're getting bogged down. Watch when we're getting bogged down. And I want to end with this poem that I haven't looked at in years and years and years and years. It's fairly well known. It's called The Invitation, and it's by a woman, Oriah Mountain Dreamer. And if you just Google the poem The Invitation, it'll come up. You don't have to remember her name. So I want to read some of it. And it says, "It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what plants are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, or remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul, if you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up night after night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or when or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. So, my friends, I invite you to find a way to be with yourselves, to find a way to welcome the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. I feel sometimes we can experience both of those every day. Allow yourself to be grounded and open and make space for whatever shows up, and stay grounded in these teachings in the eightfold path and the wisdom of compassion and clarity. I have found true freedom and liberation on this path, and I hope that you also find some as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your practice. So, questions, thoughts, comments. You can sit for a minute if you like. Actually, do I have a quote? Maybe I'll close with this and I think it's a quote from Anne Frank. She said, "I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains," which is a really important, I think, piece of the whole thing. So thank you again, my friends, for being here, for your practice, for your open hearts, and take care of yourselves today. Take care of each other. One more time, just reminding you that we have 4 groups a week, this one in person and hybrid, and the others online. You all can get the info on the website. There's a couple of Donna baskets in the back of the room, and I put the Donna link in the chat again. There's also cookies in the back. Please feel free to take bunches of them. And if you're interested in the recovery group, please hang out after and we can talk Zoom or in person. And I want to close with the beautiful piece that Ian wrote, Going Forth, Offering Merit. Going forth into this world, so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being in each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and to each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. May all beings be free. Thanks, everyone.